to the Michigan Sports Media Network. We are back with another episode, and if you're catching us today, it is Tuesday, and from now on, we will be live on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which I assume you're already in because this is Michigan Sports. So, with that being said, we will be on Tuesdays until the foreseeable future. Likely when the NFL season rolls back around, we will change probably back to Wednesdays because I do think that's the best day of the week to do mostly NFL stuff. So, speaking of NFL stuff, we are going to start with NFL today. We usually kind of save the best for last, in my opinion, but I think it's a good week to change it up a little bit. With that being said, there is a little bit of I don't know if you would call it controversy or turmoil or what the word would be necessarily for this situation, but we have a situation on our hands, Houston. We have a problem. Um, the NFL is having an issue with their second round picks. 30 out of 32 are still unsigned, and that is because the two that have signed fully guaranteed contracts for the first time in the NFL. Second round picks have gotten guaranteed deals. Now, do I think this kills it for the second round? No, not necessarily. I think this is a good thing. That these young guys are getting guaranteed money simply because the NFL is a cruel bitch, for lack of a better term, and they will cut you loose for if you get a injury that is deemed pretty bad. They will get rid of you, or if you're just not playing very well, they'll get rid of you. And we've seen it before where guys they get injured and they're never really the same or they don't play again. I mean that happens. It doesn't happen so much anymore because as we know, medicine's gotten a lot better with like torn ACLs and Achilles and things like that. People are coming back from that, of course, but crazier things have happened. So I do like the fact that they're getting guaranteed money. Now, there is a small issue, and I don't know if it really is a small issue because it could kind of derail the whole situation here. Um, I don't know how much leverage these guys really have at this point. They have some because they are the player, and they are a second round pick, so these teams want to get them signed. But at this point, I mean, we're nearing the season. If they remain unsigned, they're not going to get paid. I mean, that's as simple as that. I do think we will see more teams, budge on this because I do think the Lions, for instance, Tate Ratledge is still unsigned, and we're looking at him to be our starting center probably. And we really want to get that deal done because we already lost Ragnow, and we really cannot go roll into week one without Ratledge on the team. That just isn't a good look. Isn't a good idea. I just feel like this thing's probably going to be done sooner than later. With training camp coming up pretty quickly. We're 2 weeks away or 11 days away from the opening training camp. So we'll kind of see how that goes as time goes on. Now, I do want to say the two players that were signed were Jaden Higgins from Houston and Carson Schlesinger from Cleveland, a wide receiver and a linebacker. I wanted to bring up their positions specifically because, I think that's more. It's less of like the team being like, man, this is a player we just can't go without, and more, those teams just acquiescing at the end of the day. And I think that's kind of how it's going to go for the rest of them. I feel, like I said before, they don't have a ton of leverage at this moment, but I do think they have enough that as soon as the first domino falls, we've already seen two, but I think those are kind of outliers with the situations they're in. As soon as that next domino falls, I think we're going to see a lot more deals just kind of get pumped out. Now, the last thing I wanted to bring up pertaining to this situation, similar situation, but it's a first rounder who actually has returned to college. Shamar Stewart from Cincinnati. I don't know, James. I'm sure you've heard about this. I'm sure a lot of the listeners have heard about this. Shamar Stewart didn't sign his deal. He didn't like the fact of how they worded certain things, and Cincinnati was the only team to word it this way in the NFL. So I kind of get where he's coming from, and he technically has the option to go back to college and then play and then get drafted. Now, I know you mentioned that there are some, rules going on because I saw your tweet about how they can't, go back because they were drafted and signed with an agent. However, with the NIL, that gets the water gets murky on that because of the fact that they already have agents because they are in the NIL situation. So I think that really changes that situation. And I do think that's gonna change a lot of things, man. I mean, think of Quinn Ewers, for instance, and maybe this is not the greatest, uh, metaphor or whatever that I'm looking for, or example, I should say. Maybe this isn't the greatest example, but Quinn Ewers, he was supposed to be like a first round pick, and then he just didn't really get much better throughout his season, his last season at Texas. And he ended up being what, a fifth round pick, I believe.
I believe
Um,
that's right.
and I think he should have been a third rounder, but that's neither here nor there. But point being, what if he just said, "Nah, I'll go back to college. I don't think it's worth being a fifth round pick and not even having a chance." Did he do that? No, but setting that precedent with Shamar Stewart, if it works out for him, we might see a lot more players do that, where they say, we see it in the NBA all the time where players will be like, "Oh, I'm gonna enter the draft because I think I'm gonna be a top five pick, or I'm not gonna enter the draft this year because I'm like a 21st to 30, second type pick." Um, we could see
Wow, he
more
was later.
players in the NFL. Who's that? He was later,
Sorry,
seventh
yeah,
round,
seventh
seventh round.
round,
Yeah.
231 overall.
Okay. Yeah. That's. I was gonna say as soon as you said that, I was like, "Oh yeah, I do remember it was a seventh round," because I was like,
Maybe it
"What?"
was Shadur Sanders we were thinking of going in the fifth.
Yeah, probably. But whole point being that we may see, this might set a precedent, for the entire NFL in terms of rookies deciding just simply I didn't get drafted as high as I thought or wanted to be, or maybe I didn't get drafted to the situation I want to be in. And I mean, think about it, man. If Quinn Ewers was making, I don't remember how much he was making, but if he was making at least $5 million a year in college, that's more than he's going to make in the NFL as a fifth round pick.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
at least in one season. So it's like it would make sense financially, play wise, like everything to just say, nah, I'll go back. Now, however, if Shamar Stewart, if this doesn't work out, that's a whole nother bag of worms there. But with that being said, I wanted to bounce this back to you before we go any further, because I know I kind of gave you quite a bit there.
Yeah, and I wanted to look up because I didn't know exactly what yours NIL deal was. So I quickly looked that up, and reports say that he turned down an $8 million for 1 year NIL deal to transfer to another team. Instead,
Wow.
he forwent that and entered the NFL draft. And I don't know how much seventh round picks make, but I know it's not 8 million a year.
No,
So,
sir.
swing and a miss. If that is true, like I said, I'm just reading the headline here. It's not like I followed Texas football, but yeah, I remember saying draft night while we're on the Ewer subject. I do remember him going in the seventh because I'm like this late. I wouldn't mind if the Lions took a flyer on him just to see what happens, but
Yeah.
didn't happen. And I'm not mad at that, but for what that's worth. And then in terms of the second round picks, almost uh, unanimously not being signed, like you said, to have. I do find it interesting, but I almost wonder what precedent it would set up because for the longest time, only first round picks. I mean, pretty much forever until this year was the first time two second round picks got fully guaranteed deals. But let's say like all these second round picks aren't signing, they want the fully guaranteed deals. Next year, does the third round do it? Next year, then does the fourth round do it? Next year. So the league needs to be careful with themselves. I know they're making money hand over fist, but I mean, we all want to keep our money. Um, and second round picks, I don't want to say don't often work out, but I mean, I don't want to dig in an old wound, but it's for old GMs here in Detroit. But we've had quite a few second round picks not really live up to expectations. I'll just say that. So if they were on fully guaranteed contracts, that would be a little rough sometimes. But I fully understand why the players want it, of course. But I also understand why the teams don't want to give it to them. And then, like I was saying, I don't know what kind of snowball effect that would have. But I would absolutely, like you said, try to get something done with Ratledge. He's supposed to be our starting center. I'm not going to lose our $45 million quarterback or however much Goff is making because we're trying to save $2 million and guaranteed on a rookie center. So, or Gibbs, or go down the list. But so hopefully that gets done. I'm not too worried about it just because, as we mentioned, it's almost everyone. It's not just like our guy holding out or anything like that. It's just a whole league thing. And then when it goes to now I just have Sanders in my head.
Yours.
Holdout rookie.
Oh, Shamar
No,
Stewart.
Samar Stewart. Uh, not Shadur Sanders. Samar Stewart. Different double S. But
True.
I'm like, why do I have that? His situation is beyond unique. Like I said with the tweets, I'm like, I don't know if it's because he hired an agent. I know that used to be a thing, but now with the NIL, I don't know. I don't know if it's an NCAA rule or a NFL rule, but I saw it somewhere that he can't go back to college. He might, and take this with a grain of salt, he might be able to do like a UFL or something for a year, or something like that to stay active. But I'm pretty sure he can't go back. But I can't, you know, sit here and say, oh, rule number 27B, so I don't know the exact thing, but if he could, that would be awfully unique for, like you said, other players in other situations. For example, like the Eli Manning thing. He told the Chargers, like, hey, don't draft me, and they did anyways, and they worked the famous Philip Rivers trade, and the rest is history. But if he had the capability just to be like, oh, you drafted me, I told you not to, I'm going back to college for a year, I'm like, that almost makes draft picks and future NFL drafts kind of like a free agency. Because you can just tell, hey, these 20 teams, I'm not going to sign with you, so don't draft me. And then you kind of get to pick where you go. So, like I said, I'm like, it's a slippery slope with some of this stuff, but I am intrigued to see how it settles.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I do feel like though I feel like players can always do that. They can always say, "Don't draft me, don't draft me, don't draft me." Problem is, not many people have the balls to do that because what happens if the team you want to draft you doesn't want to draft you or they don't draft you for whatever reason? You know what I mean? Like, I think that Philip Rivers and Eli Manning situations were a bit different. They were, um, unique, very unique
Yes.
situations, and I feel like they worked out for the player, and we haven't seen it since. So I hope that you're wrong, that it won't set a precedent because the other two times that this similar situation happened, it didn't. However, it does change with the NIL situation because, like we talked about, if he can return to college. And from what I was looking at, it does seem like he can. The problem is the Bengals retain his rights because they drafted him, so they own his NFL rights. So I don't know how he could get out of that, but I would assume it would be like, let's just say he enters the 2026 draft, right? And the, I don't know, the second round, somebody wants to take Shamar Stewart, for whatever reason. Like, let's just say he falls out of the first.
Lions.
Hey, I would not be mad. But if he falls out of the first round, goes second round, let's say, a team could just say, "Hey, Bengals, we're on the clock. We want Shamar. We'll trade you for his rights. This pick." You know what I mean? Like, what difference really would that make? They're basically drafting him. The Bengals then would get, they'd lose out on their first round pick last year, but they'd get something in return of value. And then, I mean, they own his rights, so it's not like he's lost a year on a contract or anything. You know what I mean? They can just then sign him to a contract. So I think like worst case scenario, that's probably what happens. A team wants to draft him next year, just trades that pick, and that's it. It'll be that simple. However, well, worst case scenario for Shamar Stewart, or not Shamar Stewart, the NFL. I think that would be worst case scenario for Shamar Stewart is he goes back to school, hurts himself, and goes undrafted, and then you're fucked because a team's probably not going to trade anything for you, and now you're just locked on a team that you totally burnt the bridge. So we'll see how that plays out. The other thing about that I wanted to touch on before we move on is the second round pick situation. I hope they get fully guaranteed deals because, I hope the entire draft gets fully guaranteed deals. Honestly, because I feel, okay, let me start here. Professional athletes are, one in a million, as we know. I mean, literally, statistically, they're, I don't know if it's literally one in a million, but it's somewhere up that, especially NBA players, because there's only, up to 15 players on a team. So theirs is probably even higher than that. Point being, excuse me. Point being, I feel, oh shit, I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that? Um,
Percent of people that make pro athletes fully guaranteed
oh yeah.
contracts.
Pro athletes are, one in a million or whatever the case may be. I feel that in the NFL, they go broke so, like, not so often anymore, but it is a thing where players will get drafted, then they bust out of the NFL within their rookie contract and they don't play again. That we've seen that happen many times, especially later picks. Imagine now, let's say you get drafted, you're a sixth round pick, and I don't know exactly what the money is, but let's just say you're making, 750K a year. Let's just call it that. It's probably more than that by now. It's probably in the millions, but let's just say you're making 750K. Okay, well, let's say you play for 2 seasons, right? And you get hurt. And some guy takes your spot. You weren't a starter, you're more of a rotation player. Once that spot's gone, that's hard to get back, right? And let's say the guy just outperforms you and then you kind of bounce around, you've made what would it be, 1.4 million in your whole career and most of that went to tax. I mean, half of that goes to taxes because they make so much money. So it's like let's say you bust out of the league within 4 seasons, you've bounced around, been on the practice squad, you've made let's say 1.5 million, half of that goes to the taxes, 750K. Well, you got injured your second year, you sat out the whole second half of the season, you didn't get paid for that. Now you only made $400,000 in your entire NFL career, and now I know that sounds like a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but you can't sustain off of that, right? You can't live off that for the rest of your life. You didn't graduate college because you got drafted. You didn't think you'd have to go back. So now you're just a regular dude. You got to go back to college and you barely got any money in the bank. And of course, you made some dumb purchases because you were an NFL player. I think we see that way too often, right? And I think if contracts were guaranteed, that wouldn't be an issue because if that player gets injured, let's say you're a fourth round pick, fifth round pick, you get injured, they're not going to cut you because then they have to eat the money anyway. You get to come back to that same team the next season. You have a shot with rehab and all that stuff, and then you still get the money no matter what happens. Like let's say you do come back and you're not the same, you still made that whole contract's worth of money, and I think that would be a game changer. And I think that at the end of the day, man, second round picks. I looked this up. At most, they're making $10 million over 4 years. Okay.
Oh, that's nothing.
Yeah, it's like, sure,
Well,
guarantee
nothing to
that
the
shit.
owners.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, guarantee that shit. Who gives a fuck, man? We've seen players get. I mean, just today, Sauce Gardner got 60 million guaranteed. I mean, he can get injured too, guys. Kirk Cousins signed a whole fucking fully guaranteed deal a year after tearing his Achilles at damn near 40. Okay, guarantee that shit and let's move the fuck on. I like if I was an owner, I'd be like, no, yeah, obviously we'll guarantee it. I don't give a fuck. He's a second round pick. He's a guy we fucking believed in enough to draft him in the second round because we thought he would become a starter. All right, sounds good to me. We get a starter for 4 years for about $10 million, not a year, but $10 million, easy money. Now, is there anything else you want to add before we move on to specific Lions stuff?
No, I was debating on touching up on the Sauce Gardner and Wilson contracts because I do feel those were I'll just say overpays, but I'll just leave that at that for now.
Yeah, I mean, let's look up the exact numbers because I don't know them off the top of my head. I do know Garrett Wilson got 32.5 million per year, and
Sauce was
Gardner got
30.1.
okay. Look, man, I have gotten to the point in my football watching career, my football fandom career, of I don't know the next year's cap hit or what's the cap space
Yeah.
like the GMs and shit do. They kind of have. I mean, it's a business, so they have all types of models and shit showing them
Oh yeah,
like, oh,
absolutely.
this is what it's projected and blah blah. And usually it's more than they project anyway. So point being, I feel like every I mean, we could say this every fucking every year, every contract. In 5 years it'll be a bargain. In 5 years it'll be a bargain.
True.
And I think that's just it looks like an overpay based on what we were paying people last year, but that's always how it goes. So I personally tend to like I always wait like 2 seasons before I decide because that'll tell you a lot. Like that second year, if the dude fucking sucks and you paid him fucking like okay, Trey Flowers, for instance, this is a good example of that. He had a pretty decent first season with us in Detroit. Nothing crazy, but we were like, okay, he's really good at stopping the run. He'll get a sack every so often. He makes big plays sometimes. It was worth it. Then that second season, everyone was like, what did we do? It wasn't even that he played that much worse. It's just that he wasn't producing to the amount that his contract was making, and it didn't matter what else anyone else was making because he was just making too damn much, and that's why we ended up cutting him. And I think that's really what it comes down to. It's like, okay, Sauce Gardner, for instance, $30 million a year for a corner, that is a fuck ton of money, yes. Now, in 3 years, if we're still talking about him as a top five corner, I think people are going to be like, damn, he's only making 30 million. You know what I mean? Same thing with Garrett Wilson. It's like, thank God we signed him on Raw when we did, man. Holy shit. Because he's making like, what,
What
28? I think he's making less than fucking T. Higgins. So, like, we got our number one for another team's number two, and now Garrett Wilson. Jamar Chase is making like, what, 40 something, 42 million a
Yeah,
year?
it's in the 40s.
Like, 45? Holy shit, man. Now,
45.
yeah, that sounds, I mean, 45 sounds about right. He's getting quarterback money. Like, it's fucking insane. And these defensive ends are getting that too. So, I think at the end of the day, these contracts are just going to keep inflating, inflating, and inflating. And it may cause some issues down the road because who knows if the business is going to keep exploding the way that it has. I mean, it just, 10 years ago, people were talking about the ratings going down. So, that's why I wouldn't have given Kirk Cousins a fully guaranteed contract coming off of an Achilles injury. And I mean, watching like the quarterback show, genuinely, Kirk didn't even play that bad this year. It was just like he had bad plays and bad moments that kind of took everything out from under him. And based on the last episode that I watched, it sounds like he was just banged up all year as well. So I do hope Kirk Cousins gets traded or cut or something and moves on from the Falcons because I do think he's still a starting caliber quarterback. Do I think he's, Minnesota Kirk Cousins from when he was, 34? No. No, I don't. He's still solid, though. With that being said, though, we will move on to our short Lions specific stuff. So, first things first, if you guys didn't know, I'm sorry you missed out. Training camp tickets were available today at 10 a.m. Now, I wanted to address this on the show, okay? Because I have seen so many people mad about not being able to get tickets, okay? And I am just curious, genuinely curious here. How? Like, what happened? You know what I mean? Like, a few people that I've talked to, they just were like, I got on at this time and I just missed out. But it's like, I need more context, right? Because I entered at like 9:57 or 9:56, whatever it was, and I was like 2000th in line. Okay, so that means 2,000 other people got on there even earlier than that, and they didn't. The tickets didn't go live till 10. Okay, 2,000 people got on before me, and I still was able to get tickets to 2 different days. My question is, where were you in the line? Because that'll tell me a lot. Like one guy said he was 7,500th. Okay, I get why you didn't get your tickets, my guy. I see it. Or no, he still got them. No, now that I think about it, he still got tickets. So I'm wondering, what did these people do wrong? Like, I just don't understand because I'm seeing a lot of people mad at the Lions and mad at Ticketmaster and mad at whatever. Like this, one guy was like, "I'm over it. I'm done even trying," and it's like, bro. Okay, first of all, it ain't that serious. Okay, I'm just say that. Okay, last year I forgot what fucking day it was on. Okay, and I still got tickets because somebody couldn't go and I was able to buy them. So I paid for them even though they got them for free. However, it was worth it. Point being, we're doing a giveaway. Okay. So if you want some training camp tickets and you missed out, all you got to do is follow us on Twitter, retweet our tweet. It'll be one of the top tweets that we've tweeted recently. You have to comment below what makes you a real Lions fan because I hate when fake Lions fans get shit for free. Okay, I'm going to just tell you that right now. You better have been here through the ride or die 2009 days, baby. 2008, baby. You know what I'm saying? 0 and 16. Like that was my first year as a fan, okay? That's what I was birthed into hell. All right, boys? I've been in the trenches. All right? That's all I'm saying. Calvin Johnson and Matthew Stafford made me love football. Okay? If you don't remember Calvin Johnson, I don't know what to tell you. You're not a real Lions fan. Okay, so point being, we're doing a giveaway for training camp tickets on August 6th at 8:30 in the morning. Okay, we have 2 tickets to give away. If you want them, that's all you got to do. Follow us, retweet it, and comment. Simple. All right, simple instructions. All right, so good luck on that. I also got tickets to the Texans joint practice, which I am so excited for, bro. Like, that was the one that I wanted the most because I was like, to see the team that Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions against and we still came back and beat them, there's going to be some bad blood at that practice, dude. I'm telling you. There's going to be some words said and some hits given, and I'm looking forward to it. But with that being said, I am just curious on how you guys did not get your tickets because it felt pretty simple and easy to me. I just sat there for 45 minutes, just waited, and I was in line, and it loaded, and I clicked checkout, and that's what it was. I mean, it was that simple. So I don't know what to tell you on that. Second thing being, going back to Tate Ratledge, okay? As we talked about before, he's probably going to be our starting center, okay? He's probably going to take Ragnow's spot. Do I think that this whole contract situation will get in the way of that? No. I think this will be resolved, sooner than later, like I said before. However, upon the chance that he, for some reason, doesn't get it done, I mean, Glasgow is going to be our center, and that probably means Miles Frazier and Mahogany are going to be the guards. Personally, that doesn't sound like the worst thing ever. I mean, it doesn't sound that great, to be honest with you, based on what we've had in the past, but it doesn't sound like we'd be totally screwed, and I don't think there's any situation where, these guys go unsigned. I don't see that. With that being said, though, I am very excited to see this rookie class, what they're going to do, specifically in training camp, because that's the first time we will be able to see them, or I will be able to see them in a Lions uniform, period, but especially with my own eyeballs in real life. Well, no, that's a lie. Rookie training camp. I am stupid. Don't worry about that.
Preseason.
Well, no, preseason is after training camp. July 26th is the first training camp.
Oh,
And
the first.
after.
Okay. I was
Yeah.
gonna say, like, we play the preseason game on the 31st, and at least the one ticket I got, it's not until August, so I'll see
Right,
them
right.
after their preseason game.
Yeah, that's a valid point. I won't see them. I will see them in the preseason first, but to be there, with my own eyes. But also, we'll see all the clips as usual
Of
at training
course.
camp, like people like to post, even though they're not supposed to. I always find that to be
They
odd.
are so
Um,
strict.
like, dude, last year I literally was like just taking a picture before any players were out there or anything, and they were on it. Like, they do not play, and I just feel like, Why? I thought that was a Matt Patricia thing, to be honest, because I went for the first time, or not the first time, but or no, it was the first training camp I ever went to. Matt Patricia was the head coach, which is rough. Um, but point being, I just I don't know. Let's see here. That I think that's all we have about the Lions. Now, is there anything else that you want to add before we move on?
No, I'm just really looking forward to football in 2 weeks, man.
Yeah, I hear that, dude. It has been, for some reason, it feels like summer has been flying by for me, but that's just because I've been off work for the most part. So I've just been chilling, and you know how it goes. Time flies when you're having fun. And it's like, dude, I remember as a kid, summers were so much longer.
My
It's
God,
like
yes.
this shit is like I wake up and it's July 15th and I'm like, what the fuck happened? Where'd it go? June is just didn't happen, I guess. It didn't exist. But going back to work soon, and that also means football starting. So it's like bittersweet feelings. You know what I mean? It's like football's great, but I don't like to work like everyone else on earth. Trust me. But no, moving on though, we are going to talk Tigers next. James, you have the floor for our Tigers update. No, it's All Star break. There's not much to do or say. However, we had some Tigers in the All Star game, and we'll see how that went. But yeah, the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, now I'm gonna keep this Tiger segment rather short compared to usual. Like you said, they are currently in the All-Star break. The All-Star game is tonight at 8 o'clock. We have four All-Star starters. We have two guys on reserve, so no guarantee they get in the game, but they may. So up to six players, which is 25% of the team. So go Tigers. Um, and the All Star break came at a good time for us. We are 5-5 our last 10 games, and are going into this All Star break on a 4-game losing streak, which is our longest losing streak of the season. Which is a double-edged sword because, to be fair, that's not that bad when you play almost every day. Like, but obviously you want to nip it in the bud before it gets any worse. We still have a commanding lead of the division, and players that were making key plays and key moments over the last month, month and a half have kind of been falling apart this last couple weeks, and kind of a bittersweet moment. But I know our all stars won't get as much rest. There's been home run derbies. I've been practicing, and they're about to play the All Star game before they resume. I believe Friday's their first game back for the regular Tigers. So the All Stars won't get too much of a break, but some of these, I'll say, struggling bullpen arms these last couple of days will get a much needed 3 to 4 days off. Hopefully they can reset because, like I said, the same guys that were kind of getting lit up this last series against Seattle were guys that were making saves and other clutch outs throughout the whole rest of the season. So I'm not going to hang my head too much on them, but I am also assuming they come back into place. And then the only other thing I really wanted to touch on, I think it would be in just not mentioning the draft, but MLB had their draft this past week. They are the only team or only league that has their draft in the middle of the season. And with the first two rounds, the Tigers drafted high school players. Because in case you did not know, in baseball you can draft straight out of high school, like you used to be able to in basketball with LeBron and Garnett and Kobe and them. But now you have to go to college for at least a year. In baseball, you still can draft straight out of college, or I'm sorry, straight out of high school. So we have these two 18-year-olds. They're not just like when we talk NHL draft and stuff. We won't see these guys for 4 or 5 years. I mean, they're only 18. The good news is we are the best team in baseball right now. So we have time to wait. We don't have to rush them through. And we have guys in the minor league systems that's been crushing it. So hopefully, as those guys get promoted from single A to double A to triple A, etc., hopefully some of these new draft picks can fill out some of the lesser leagues for now as they start earning their way up. So I didn't want to. I'm not going to go into a whole pick breakdown. The baseball draft is 20 rounds, and yeah, like I said, I'm not going through 20 rounds of players that won't be here for 4, 5, 6 years, depending on who they are. Um, but I wanted to at least touch on that. But yeah, with the game at 8 o'clock today, Scooble did say in a pregame interview he's only going to pitch one inning. They got a lot of all stars that they are going to, work in, and they don't want to obviously have Scooble throw 5, 6 innings and then he's useless. Not useless, but used up and needs his rest for the Tigers when the game's actually, um, I would say, matter more. Because I want to kind of stutter step on that because baseball is also the only sport that the All Star game actually matters. So, if you did
What do
not
you mean?
know, the winner of the All Star game host the World Series. So if the
Oh,
NL team wins, the NL team has home field advantage for the World Series, and they get that 4 games at home as 3 games on the road. So the winner of the All
that
Star game
seems
determines who gets home field advantage for the World Series.
that's fucking crazy.
Yep.
That's
And
nuts. Like actually fucking nuts. The fact that I didn't know that is wild, but holy
yeah,
shit.
and I'm just like, well, it's an all-star game, so it doesn't matter. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. 3 of the 4 don't. This one does. Um,
I
so
mean,
yeah,
that's a way
so
to make it matter, I guess, but
yeah.
damn.
So if the Tigers or if the AL wins and the Tigers go to the World Series because of the AL's win tonight, we would have that Game 7 advantage in Comerica if it goes well. So there
Wow.
actually, like I said, there's something on the line, at least a little bit there. But really, that's all I got on the Tigers for now until we play further games.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems right now it's pretty much the dead period for every sport besides the NBA because they are actually playing games. Well, not the actual NBA, but the Summer League is going on right now. And actually, speaking of going on right now, the Pistons are currently playing the Timberwolves, and it is 39 to 31 at halftime. Timberwolves are up. So the Pistons are 2 and 0, going into this game against Minnesota. So far, seen some good things. I have not watched the games all the way through. I watched the highlights, so just telling you, I'm speaking from a more of a casual point of view from the summer league standpoint, at least. Sorry, but ain't nobody got time for that. All right, at least not me. Now, thing is, okay. Dennis Jenkins had a pretty good game against Houston, 23.6 assists, and Ron Holland also had 15 points. Now, the thing is with the Summer League, it's similar to the G League, okay? So I always take everything that happens in the Summer League with a grain of salt because I will tell you right now, this is probably not how these guys' stat lines would look in an NBA game for the most part. There's a handful of guys that play in the Summer League, rookies mostly. Rookies and second year players sometimes, a little bit better second year players will play, but not too often. And if they do, it's usually in the tournament only, or like only in the first couple games, like we saw with Cooper Flag. Which, speaking of him, he is done in the summer league. So he's one of those guys that, yeah, he could actually put up 31 points in a game, but he only played 2 games. So with that being said, Jenkins did have a really, really good game, but I will say that probably um, doesn't mean he's earned himself a roster spot, even let alone minutes in our rotation. So, with that being said, Ron Holland, who is going to earn minutes in our rotation and already has his roster spot locked up, had a very good game against Miami. He was 28 points, 11 rebounds, three steals, and 1 block. So Holland has looked pretty good so far in the summer league, and that's something we really need coming. Um, Coming into the season, we're going to need a little bit of a more of a step up from guys like Ron Holland, from guys like Jaden Ivey, from these younger guys who can do it, like Marcus Sasser, for instance. I think Marcus Sasser's pretty good. When I saw them play the Spurs live, Cade was out, unfortunately. And Marcus really, really lit it up. So I think he's got some potential to be our, main backup point guard. I know Ivy and maybe Levert will, log some of those minutes as well. But with that being said, so far they've looked pretty good in the summer league. And actually, I was wrong. It was the Knicks that Ron Holland had that game against. They play Miami on Thursday, so I was incorrect on that one. And then moving on, like I said, they play Miami on Thursday for the next summer league game. We hope that they win this one because that would improve them to 3-0 in the summer league. Now, moving on, we have a little bit of more juicy story here for you with Malik Beasley. Okay, I know everybody knows by now Malik Beasley is in some trouble for gambling. It sounds like he's might be cooked, folks. It doesn't sound very good. Um, according to according to the Torres Finds Out podcast, um, obviously this happened in 23-24 season in Milwaukee. In Milwaukee, excuse me. Um, the one thing that I really took away from this, though, reading the excerpts and things like that, because I did not watch the entire show, um, this is so funny to me. Malik Beasley's close, what I don't was it family, or just someone close to him, doesn't say family or a friend, said, and I quote, "He is a dumbass, and I believe everything." So we don't know who the person was. Okay, so I'm not saying it's 100% credible. However, if it is true that someone close to him is calling him a dumbass and saying that they believe it, I think he might be cooked, folks. Like they're gonna look into this, and it's part of the Jonte Porter thing. And Jonte Porter, I don't know if you guys remember this or not, can never play in the NBA again. So if Malik Beasley is truly connected to that situation, there is a chance that Malik Beasley may never play in the NBA again. Okay? Now, what I think is most likely to happen is he will have to sit out next season. I feel like if it was as bad as Jonte Porter's situation, um, which was pretty bad, he was betting his own unders. That's how bad it was. Um, like I'm sorry, but betting your own unders on rebounds is fucking crazy. Okay, you're literally going out there to make money playing basketball, and you're like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna win $8,000, and I'm just gonna suck ass tonight. And it's like, where does that compute? Like, I'm sorry, I don't get this at all. I don't know why these NBA players are gambling. It does sound like Malik Beasley's got some money issues though, and that's probably why. Sounds like he likes to spend his money exorbitantly and on things that don't make a lot of sense. So, with that being said, I do worry that minimum Malik Beasley will not be in the NBA next season. That's what I'm thinking right now. Possibilities could change, but with everything that is going on, it doesn't look very good. There is a chance he never plays again as well, and he's only what 27 or 28 years old, so that would be ending his career pretty short in a career that seems like it's just getting started. I mean, he had his best season in Detroit in his career. I would say at least he may not have had his best scoring season statistically, but he had his best shooting year. He was second in the NBA in three-pointers made. So I just feel like this would be a loss for the NBA, and it's unfortunate, if it were to happen. But you got to be smarter than that, guys. Like, I'm sorry, that's just so stupid. Um, and before we move on to the last thing, is there anything you want to add to that?
Not necessarily, but while we're on the topic of dumbasses and being stupid, I would like to make a correction from my Tiger segment. Because I wanted to look it up because I'm just like, yeah, I'm like the All-Star game determines home field advantage between the AL and NL. It used to. They changed that rule, so my bad, guys.
All right, I'm kind
So
of glad that they did that because that seemed
that
nuts.
used to
Like
be a
that
thing.
was crazy. Um,
Apparently that's a real old thing. It changed and ended. Like I said, it used to be that way. That ended in 2016. So my brain was about 10 years behind on that. So my bad, but it used to be that way. So hey, evolution of sports.
yeah,
But
right.
no, on the Beasley thing, besides just you can't do that, man. But besides that, just move on.
Yeah. With that being said, if he is acquitted or whatever the case, there is a chance that the Pistons could bring him back, which would be kind of cool because they'd get him at a pretty cheap deal with all this situation going on. The last thing with the Pistons in the NBA in general is, the Pistons currently they have 13 players on their roster that are not two-way contracts. So they do have two-way contracts, meaning they technically have 15 players. However, those two-way contracts don't count against your, players signed, and they can only play a certain amount of NBA games. So I don't think the Pistons will necessarily sign someone else. However, it's very possible. Okay, there are guys like I've said many times. Russell Westbrook is still sitting out there. It sounds like he's not getting a lot of money offered, and the Pistons do have an exemption. So there's not. I'm sorry, not the trade exception. They have the MLE, I believe. So they'll be able to use that money to then sign Westbrook outright, and they still have that trade exception that they got from the Schroeder deal. So there's a chance that they could sign someone like that who's an older guy, just kind of like a steady guard, which I think would make a lot of sense. However, I don't know if that's really in the cards right now. Because I do kind of think they're waiting to see what's going on with this Beasley situation. Because I do think they would re-sign him if he gets, cleared of this stuff. And like I said, it should be at a cheaper deal too. So, and I don't know. It just sounded like from Langdon's, press conference. I know we talked about this a little bit last week, but it just sounded like he wasn't really even looking to add anybody else. He's just like, look, man, this is the team we got. We're looking to develop these young guys. Hope everybody takes the next step. Da 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 da. Personally, I don't see why you wouldn't sign somebody. I'm just saying if you can get somebody for the minimum, even if it's fucking campaign, dude. Campaign is low key a dog in the playoffs, okay? We saw it last year in the Knicks series. Campaign did pretty good for them coming off the bench as their third point guard. So I just feel like he'd be a perfect option, because that's what we need. We need a third point guard right now. Really, we need a backup, but we can kind of try that point guard by committee approach with Cade and Sasser and Levert and Ivy. So I mean, there's a lot of different lineups that they could tinker with that. However, like I said, I don't see them necessarily signing someone. I would love it, but just doesn't sound like they're going to. And then the trade exception situation, I know I might have mentioned this before, but I just don't think that's going to get used in the way a lot of people think it will be. And I don't think it's going to get used anytime soon. I think they're going to wait until the trade deadline. They're going to hope, I don't know, somebody like Zion Williamson could be available for, a cheap price, which I don't see. Maybe a guy like Michael Porter Jr. Could make a little bit of sense. He is getting overpaid, but if he has a pretty good season in Brooklyn, I could see them wanting to get off his contract. And I mean, think about it. We trade him, Tobias Harris, the trade exemption, and, one of our young guys or a first round pick, and that might get it done depending on how well he's playing over there. So just some options to think about. But I will say I don't see this trade exception being used for someone like a Zion or like a big name like that because we just don't have a lot to give right now, man. Like, if we trade one of our young guys like Ivy or Duran, we just have to replace them anyway. So it's like if we're gonna do that, we should have done it already because there's not a lot of guys left in free agency that we could sign to replace those guys. So with that being said, that is it for our Pistons segment for today. We will now move on to the final segment of the show, which will be the Red Wings. But before we do, okay, I just want to give a shout out to Fanatics because right now they are having a deal. Last week it was 70% off. I do believe that deal is still going on. If it's not, I'm very sorry. But they always have deals pretty much all the time. And it seems as though everybody wants the rookie Tesla jersey, okay? That's the place to get it, boys, okay? You go to Fanatics. You could even get a shirt jersey because they're even cheaper, all right? And that way you don't got to worry if he doesn't work out. I'm just saying. You didn't spend $130. I'm just saying. Call me crazy. I might be cheap. I am cheap. It's all right. That's how I was raised, boys. All right. So, point being, if you want a jersey, if you want a hat, if you want a shirt, if you want socks, my boy, go to Fanatics. Click the link in the description. Get you some gear. It doesn't matter what team. You could go get a shirt for one of the Tigers rookies. I don't know if that'd be the smartest, but you could do it. Okay, they would probably have it. Now, link is in the description. Click it, buy some stuff. You'll enjoy it. Thank me later. And then next, trytheworld.com is a pretty cool situation where you can literally try the world. If you aren't, able to travel, or if you just want to try some snacks from like Korea, which I think would be pretty cool. I don't know if you've tried anything like that, James, but I've tried snacks from Korea and Japan. They are way different than what we have, but they're fun. Okay, so I think you should look into it, try it out. Trytheworld.com. The link is in the description. All you do, send them some money. They send you some snacks from a different country. It is that easy, folks. Okay, click the description. We appreciate you. Now, moving on to our last segment, the Red Wings. We have a little bit more to talk about today. It's still not a lot, but we have a little bit more than we've had. Well, I guess the past couple weeks we've been pretty good because the draft and free agency was going on. So we had a little bit to talk about. But let's keep this train rolling. The floor is yours.
Yeah, and it's funny that this comes up because as you are going through our Feed the World, which I do plan on trying once the football season gets here, I am looking forward to having snacks with the game. So I feel like that's what I'll be doing here shortly, especially with maybe I should order now because 2 weeks of preseason, so I should probably order now. Didn't think about shipping time, but so while I do that, not too much news with their wings, but as I was saying, sorry, terrible segue, got looped around. But I'm literally reading now that Iserman is still making trade calls. No names attached to it or anything, but he's still looking for a top six forward. I will say we are in a pretty desperate need for one. I've kind of accepted that we won't get one just because the bulk of the offseason in terms of the time span where the trades happen and the draft happens, kind of just like the NFL right now. Like, you're not going to hear of an NFL trade right now. Like, it's just not a thing. There's a little bit in the NHL, but most of it was a couple weeks ago when we heard of 3 or 4 trades per day. But he's still on the phone, so hopefully something happens with that. Once again, pending price. Because I do want him to do something, but I mean, sometimes I fear saying that, and then something happens, and I'm like, well, maybe not that. But yeah, so we'll see on that. But other than that, that's all I have for the wings themselves. But most of this will be more focused on the NHL itself. As I mentioned in the last podcast, they agreed to a new CBA, and I got a lot more information on that and on more specifically the time span because they did not like go up to the wire and then make their new agreement and then it's like, okay, here's the new rules, season's about to start, implement new rules. This was an extension onto what was already existing, and they are now about to play. They are going into the final year under the old rules. So everything I'm about to explain from now on will not affect this upcoming season, but will a year from now. Because there are some pretty significant changes, which knowing this kind of would change my plans for how we address this offseason because certain things like the length of contracts for free agents is going down, which I'll touch on here in a second. But that would mean like if you really had your heart set on a free agent this year, you could sign him this year to a longer contract than you can a free agent next year. So yeah, so I would hope that we would have been a little more aggressive this year, but like I said, most of the teams retained their talent and re-signed. It's been a pretty boring offseason in the NHL, besides 1 or 2 moves, to be honest. But the new CBA goes in effect September 16th next year, and it runs through September 15th of 2030. So it's a 4-year deal. So once we get going on this, it's going to be around for a little while. And let me tell you what, it is crazy to see 2030 written on paper. That's just Something else for me. At least it kind of blew my mind. But they're following a little bit in the NFL's footsteps with some of these changes. For example, they are going to shorten preseason and add on 2 more games to the regular season.
These fuckers.
So,
These greedy fuckers, man. They can't
so,
keep themselves away from it.
so they will be shortening the preseason to it seems like 4 games because right now it's 8. So cutting the preseason in half and adding 2 games onto the end of the regular season to make it an 84 game schedule instead of 82. So it used to be tied with basketball slash I guess it still is for now, but next year it'll be up to 84 regular season games.
See, and just to stop you for a
Yeah,
second,
go ahead.
the NFL, right, is so greedy, okay, that they added a 17th game like what 2 years ago now I think it was. We went to a
Oh, right,
17
yeah.
game schedule. Uh, but watching so I may have mentioned it before on the show, but I recently watched Entourage for the first time. I don't know, James, if you've watched it or not. Great show, okay, but it's from like 2004, okay. In like season 6, there's a character who starts talking about being an owner of an NFL franchise, and the owners are talking about going to 18 games. Mind you, this is what 2009. So in 2009 was the first time, at least from what I've seen, the NFL talking about going to 18 games. So we've heard a lot of rumblings now of the NFL going to 18 games, but it's been, what, 20 almost, yeah, 20 years damn near.
You said
So
from 23.
yeah, point being, it's crazy that no matter how long it takes, these, whether it be the NHL, the NFL, whatever, they will find a way to add games. And I kind of feel like the NBA needs to go the opposite direction, but I doubt that ever happens. But I just find it kind of crazy that, the NHL of all places are adding games to their schedule. That just seems kind of odd. Like, you already fucking play 82, bro, and you got 7 game series in the damn playoffs.
Yep.
So what the fuck? And this is a very physical game, by the way. It's not fucking
Yep.
basketball. Like,
Extremely.
it's like Jesus, man. Can we add some roster spots or something? We need more bodies. Like, holy shit, man. But anyway, that's the end of my rant. That the mic is passed back to you.
I'll say feel free to chime in because there's a lot of here. Um, to be fair, somewhat fair, because you weren't alive for this, the NHL has
Wow.
had an 84 game season before. 3 years, in fact, from 92 to 94. 19, by the way. 1992 to 1994, they had 84 games before switching back to 82 from 1995 till now, present. So they did do it in the early 90s, but it's going to be back coming in 2026, 2027 season. Also, they limited, as I mentioned before, the contract lengths. It used to be you can retain your own free agents, draft picks, etc., your own players, up to 8-year contracts. They're cutting that down to 7, so 1 less year. And if they were not your free agents, if it was someone else free agent, it was 7 years, and now that's cut down to 6. So I don't know if they're trying to have more turnover. Obviously, just like the NFL, the market keeps going up, and teams soon will have to make some tough decisions because the NHL salary cap is going up, but it is not going up at the rate like NFL salary cap is.
Hmm.
So if you sign a guy to a nice 7-year deal that doubles or triples his money from his rookie contract, 4 or 5 years from now, yeah, the cap went up, but it didn't go up as much as you think. And if you drafted well continuously, you're going to run into issues where you're going to start having to make some tough decisions.
Yeah,
And
and that's something that I wanted to touch on a little bit now that you mentioned it. Like, isn't that better for the players? Like, because you're
yeah,
shortening the years, so it allows them, like you said, to make more money because they're just like, okay, well, yes, the cap space went up, and like you mentioned, it's not quite like the NFL. Like, you're not gonna see guys getting paid 15 million 1 year and then 25 the next and then 35 the next. That's not gonna happen in the NHL. But you're still gonna see jumps, every year, like you said. So I think that's good for the players because then it's like, well, if you sign a contract and it's you're not really liking the place or whatever the case may be, or if you're just playing your freaking mind out, like let's say you hit the market at like 27, about your prime, you sign a deal for 10 million. Well, 3 years, 5 years from now, you could be worth 15, 20 million. So that helps the players, but like you mentioned, also it helps the teams because then like let's say you sign a guy because you're desperate, you sign a 30-year-old to a 7-year contract. You're paying him 11.5, a year, the whole contract. By that fifth year, you're going to be like, Jesus, what did we do this for? I've done that many times. I've rebuilt a lot of teams on NHL, and a lot of the time I'm like, what the fuck did they give this guy a 6-year contract for? It's like, holy shit, man, this is nuts. But point being, it's just, I think it's good for everybody involved. I really like that deal or that new rule. So that was my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, it kind of it all if you're not talking about the X's and O's of a particular sport, a lot of the same stuff kind of rolls together because this can kind of be covered just like we covered the Lions in the second round picks, or I should say the NFL in the second round picks. With these shorter contracts, it could be better for the players because you can get them to roll over, get them to their new market rate sooner. But at the same time, if they get hurt, then they have one less year on the guarantees and all that kind of other
True.
stuff. So it goes both ways. So it is what it is. I thought it was interesting because I did know there was a limit before, but by shortening it, like I said, I don't know what their implied intention was. If it's just for the players to get to the market sooner, if it was, maybe just an all around, because obviously with the CBA, maybe the players asked for this. Who knows? Not like I was sitting in on those meetings, but
Right.
that is something interesting that I thought got brought up.
Well, and
The other thing,
also, this might be a little off topic, but I wanted to bring this up. Um, it's kind of like a question and a statement in the same time. But so, you were talking about how Iserman didn't, sign people, for instance, but you also mentioned that a lot of teams retained their talent. And, I'm assuming that like every fucking league besides the NBA for some reason, the NBA sometimes the best player in the league could be a free agent. I mean, we've literally seen that happen. The decision,
I was just about to say that.
so so it's like that happens kind of often. Kevin Durant, like this year we've got a couple. Next year there's going to be a bunch of really good players that hit free agency, or at least could. I feel like in the NHL though, you don't really see that very often. I feel like NHL teams do a pretty good job of retaining their best guys. So in the NHL, you really have to hit in the draft. And I know, Yzerman has done pretty well. He's gotten guys like Raymond, who Insider, who are very good players, but it doesn't seem like, and I'm not the biggest Red Wings fan, so I could be wrong. It doesn't seem like we do a good job at drafting like superstars. Like I don't like what who was the last like true superstar would you say in a Red Wings uniform?
That we drafted, or just a superstar in the Red Wings
Just in
uniform?
general, just in general.
Uh, Datsuk Zetterberg. I
Okay,
mean, we're going back
that's kind of
10,
what I was
15
thinking.
years.
Yeah, I figured Datsuk because I remember him. Like
Yeah.
I'm like I said, I'm not the biggest Red Wings fan, but I remember Datsuk and Zetterberg. Like, um, now point being, it seems to me that's kind of why the Red Wings are not doing very well. Like he drafts pretty good, but we're not. And I'm not blaming Iserman. This is more of like a conversation we had a long time ago with lottery selections and the picks that the Red Wings get. I think that's kind of more the issue. We aren't getting like the first overall pick, even when we should. It's similar to the Pistons. It's like we're not getting the picks we should be getting to then be able to draft a superstar player. Because, I mean, in the NHL, it's way harder than most leagues because you're not going to, unless they are absolutely elite, they're not going to play for a while. And
Right.
even if they are absolutely elite, they might start, in the AHL and then, within a couple games move up. But point being that it kind of seems like the Red Wings are stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? Where it's
Yep.
like, okay, we can't go sign a bunch of great free agents because we already kind of have the middle parts of this team. We just need a couple of these guys and like a couple defenders in the middle. I guess would be my critique on the team, but it's like we aren't able to sign those free agents, but we're also not able to draft those talented guys. So what are we supposed to do? I mean, at this point, we've talked about on the show many times, we could make a trade, but it's like for who and how much? And, I mean, hockey has a thing too that a lot of other places don't, where a guy might hit the free agent market and he's 25 years old, but he's got a restriction on his free agency, and it means you have to give up a bunch of picks. So you're basically trading for the guy anyway. So I think the NHL should change that. Make it maybe a little bit easier for these superstars to hit free agency or whatever the case may be, but some rules to try to make a little bit more parity. Because, as a Red Wings fan, even a casual fan that I am, I kind of see the writing on the wall, and it's like until we can get lucky, basically, we're gonna be in this situation. So
Oh, absolutely. Yzerman needs to either swing a big trade or just hit a grand slam of a draft pick. So, like I said, I've been extremely critical of him, but this particular offseason, I can't even say, hey, why didn't we try to go sign this guy or that guy? Like, okay, I was really big on wanting to trade for Robinson, I'm sorry, Robertson, the left wing from the Dallas Stars. Dallas cut their second line center, saving 8 million, and re-signed him. So what the hell is Yzerman supposed to do about that? So, like I said, even as a known Yzerman hater, this offseason I can't really bitch. He's done what he could with what he's got. Like I started the segment with, and rumors and reports are that he's still trying to call people to try to make a trade. So, like I said, this offseason I'm kind of defending him a little bit more, which I did find funny because, as I mentioned before, I have some other Yzerman haters asking me why why I quote switch teams on Yzerman. And I'm like, no, it's just I call each individual move like I see it. Some can be good, some can be bad. Just because Yzerman makes a move doesn't mean it's automatically bad or automatically good.
it's
So,
almost like you use your brain. Whoa, Twitter guys don't know what that's like.
some of them don't. Some of them don't.
It's like, holy
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, like sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And I will say this would be a very intriguing season, not just because it's going to be the first year with the new head coach for the complete season, which I do think will play a factor, but this seems to be the offseason that I'm hearing more and more that the young guys and the people that Yzerman has drafted 3, 4 years ago, like the Nate Danielsons, should be and will be on the preseason roster. So we can at least get to see them, unless you're watching AHL hockey, which I doubt many people out there are. Um, this could be your first time seeing names that we've been hearing about for 3, 4 years, being like, oh, well, Nate Danielson only had like 10 goals his first year, then he's up to 12, now he's up to 15. I'm like, okay, but now we actually get to watch the guy. Were they empty netters? Were they. I'm a
Right.
huge stat guy, but in hockey, in all sports, they don't tell the entire story, but you can get a feel for it.
Well, and I,
But
I also feel like with hockey, it's one of those sports that it's so much harder to box score watch simply because
oh,
there's so much going on, and genuinely dudes can have a hat trick from get being in the right place at the right time, and you don't really. I mean, obviously you have to be good to be in the NHL, like and all that, but you don't have to be one of the best shooters, in the entire NHL to get a stat line like that simply because
yeah,
somebody gives you a one time or three times in a row. You know what I mean? Like it could be
absolutely.
that simple. So
Absolutely. So it would be nice to physically see these guys. I've yet to see Danielson play. Yes, I have been box score watching him, but as you mentioned, you can only get so much out of that. In between, as anyone who watches the podcast know, we watch enough Tigers and Red Wings and Pistons and Lions and Michigan Panthers, and I'm like, I
yeah,
can't throw in the Griffins, guys. I also have a 9 to 5 job, and
right.
so this would be my first time watching him physically. And we called the two prospects that I'm most intrigued by, the two Swedes over from Sweden last year. I'm sorry, where they played last year, and they are. I'm going to say 95% chance they're not going to start with the Wings this year, but they will for sure be at least in Grand Rapids at the worst. So once again, they'll be getting continuous reps. And as we mentioned, hockey's a physical sport. Once you're in Grand Rapids, it's literally a 3-hour drive. So if there's a player that gets hurt at a morning skate or something, you can be playing that day anyways. So it makes me feel a lot better that they're in Grand Rapids than, oh, they're in Sweden. They'll be here next week, as they
Right.
start moving everything over. But to get back on track with this CBA here, because I know we're starting to run a little long. Um, Also, in terms of the kind of joining forces with the CBA of the NFL, there will now be a full-time emergency backup goalie that does not count as a roster spot. Teams have had some goalies, I mean, sometimes multiple goalies get hurt in a game, and they had a position player have to suit up, or it's kind of like a position player in baseball pitching. It's never a good situation for anyone involved. But this way, there will be a third emergency goalie on standby, but it doesn't count as the roster. You're not going to have to cut or undress a defenseman or anything like that. So I would say in 99.5% of games, this is not going to be needed. But on that slim chance, it's a wonderful thing to have. Um, and then the other thing that is what I'll end it on, because there's a lot of small things that I don't even care to talk about. Like they did a dress code thing for press conferences. Yeah, I don't care, and I'm sure anyone watching does not care about what the NHL players are wearing. But the NHL in this new CBA has mandated neck protection and neck guards for the players and officials starting in the 26-27 season. Unfortunately, there was a player named Adam Johnson who passed away in October of 23 when he got his neck unfortunately cut by one of the player's skates. In the Yeah, I can tell you didn't know about that.
Wow, that's
Uh,
crazy that I never heard that. That's
yeah,
fun. I'm always worried about that.
he was a
Like,
Nottingham Panther for England's elite ice hockey league, basically England's
oh,
NHL. He was a former Pittsburgh Penguin. Unfortunately, things kind of fizzled out here, and he went to the England's NHL, kind of like if you fizzled out in the NFL and you went to the UFL or something like that. But unfortunately, he got cut in the neck by a skate, which has happened in the NHL, but thankfully, no deaths in the NHL. But unfortunately, he passed away. Um, and so they are making neck guards mandatory for all new players. If you have, yep, if you have experience prior to the 26-27, so basically, if you are a current player or a rookie class player this year, since once again the CBA does not go into effect this year, they are optional. You can wear them if you choose, but even after the 26-27, you are grandfathered into this rule where if you're a veteran player who's 34, 30, let's say Patrick Kane, he's been playing hockey his whole life, he's never worn a neck guard. He doesn't want to. Some people complain that it's bulky and uncomfortable and blah, blah, blah. I haven't worn one. I'll take their word for it. Um, but when the even slight chance of death is the alternative, I do think that this is a good change. So any new player starting in 26-27 season will have to wear a neck guard, and every player after that and referee will have to wear a neck guard. If you have any NHL experience before then, it's optional, so they won't force you to wear it, but they will get all the new generation going from that point on. But it's unfortunate that someone had to unfortunately pass away because of that, but at least there's um, I say to say icing, a little gleam of light in a terrible situation that hopefully this will never happen again, and other players in the future can avoid this. Unfortunately, you can't change the past, but I will also bring up to those older players and older fans who will continuously say, quit changing the game and stuff like that. Back in the day, I mean, obviously, if you watch hockey, Mickey Redmond's a tremendous announcer. They always show clips or pictures of him. They didn't wear helmets. Goalies didn't wear face masks. Like the game's always been changing, and for the better. I can't imagine trying to be a goalie and you don't wear a helmet. There are pictures online. Go Google them if you want. It doesn't always turn out well for them. Um, so yeah, so like this is like I think it would be necessary. Hockey's the only sport I have not played in person. I played street hockey like everyone else, but um, when I asked my parents growing up if I could play hockey, they said sure, but then because that's more expensive for the ice time and the pads, I'd have to give up baseball, football, or basketball, two of the three, and I'm like, nah, I'd rather be a three-sport athlete. So I did those three. But so never played hockey, but I would absolutely wear a neck guard if I did.
Yeah, that's and the thing that's the sticking point for me is the fact that they're like, if you're old though, it's all right. You're gonna be gone soon anyway, And
They
yeah,
did the
if he
same
dies, he dies. Like, what the fuck?
they did the same thing with the helmets, if I'm not mistaken, when they implemented like, okay, now helmets are mandatory. You can see clips, and I don't know what year it is, but you can find old school hockey clips online where some players are wearing a helmet and some players are not. So once again, they made it like optional, and the old school guys are just stuck in their ways. So,
Well, it's like the fucking Guardian caps in the NFL. It's like,
yep,
why is everyone not wearing them all the time? And it's like, well, it's less drippy. It's like, what the fuck?
this is actually that's a very good connection. I will only say, as someone who's had or not NFL but football concussions before, um, at least it's not death, like
Right,
immediate
right,
at
right.
least. I mean, it
Yeah.
still sucks, but
Yeah, it's a little bit different than getting your jugular sliced, you know.
yep, yep, not quite the same comparison there. But in terms of optional um, protection, like you said, I don't know why you wouldn't.
Right.
Concussions aren't fun. I can tell you that firsthand. I would wear one if there was such a thing, 15 years ago when I played. But yeah,
True.
there is not, was not.
Right. Well, if that is that all you got for the Red Wings then today?
Yeah, like I said, there's some other small CBA stuff, but I'm like, it's dress code and curfew, and yeah,
Right.
nothing that's gonna rivet our audience.
We will let you guys read the fine print.
Yeah,
We know you won't though, because ain't nobody reading those goddamn terms and conditions. I tell you right now, I don't know
nope.
any person on earth who has ever read a terms and conditions for anything that they signed up for. Which, if you've seen Black Mirror, you might want to start. I'm just saying. That's a little scary. You never know what the fuck these people are doing, especially with AI coming around. But point being, before we get conspiratorial, point being, um, point being, that is going to do it for this episode. As always, you appreciate us for doing this for you. No, we appreciate you guys for watching.
Maybe
And
you.
yeah, we appreciate you guys for watching. As always, though, we will see you guys next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, you can find me at JSoSweet, James at Gullet_James, and both of us at MI Sports Media and MISportsmedia.com. Now, before we go, I want to give a shout out to our other company. I haven't done this yet. Michigan Talent Management, though, if you are an up and coming talent of any sort, an athlete, an influencer, a creator, whatever the case may be, get in contact with us. We can help your dreams come true. Trust and believe. We have one client right now, okay, but we just started, a month ago. So, with that being said, that's going to do it for this one, and we will see you on the next one. Peace.